Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Climb. I'm Brad Jones, the founder and CEO here at Retail Management Solutions, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to the September Climb event. Now, you'll notice a little bit of difference here. I'm the only one today. My sidekick, Brandon Bolesky, our Director of Operations, isn't with us today, and I'm going to actually go through and do Climb all by myself today. I'm your guest speaker. I'm going to do the after Climb. I'm the one today, and we did this actually by design because last month, we had Mona Gaddis from Durand Central Pharmacy here, and we spent about 45 minutes talking about her amazing independent pharmacy and the transformation she made over time and the impact that it had on our pharmacy. And then a few days later, I was in Texas doing a presentation for Lisa Faust's organization, Diversify RX, excuse me, at their Pharmacy Profit Summit. And it was a great experience. I spoke on stage to a group of hundreds of independent pharmacies that are really trying to make a difference in their front end and gave the presentation that I'm going to give today. And so we really thought this was a good tie-in. And then in my after climb today, I'm actually going to do a little bit of a deep dive into some of the reports, or not some of the reports that I talk about during my presentation here today, as well as one additional report. So it's all me today. Sorry if I'm boring to you, but I'm excited to do this. So I'm going to share my screen right now and just get right into it. So just give me a second. Here we go. So I've entitled my presentation Fun with the Front End. And I did this because I really personally, I've been in Brown Pharmacy, as many of you know, my entire life. I really think that the front end of the pharmacy is a lot of fun. And so I wanted to build off of that. So why do I think it's fun? Well, I think it's fun. You get my mouse working. Here we go. I think it's fun because you have control. This is the place you have control. The front end of the business is where you have complete control. You control the products and services. You control the appearance. You control the merchandising, the pricing. You have complete control over the image. And you have complete control over that image that you are projecting to your patients, to your customers. Okay? So many of you, even if you have a tiny front end, so many discount the importance of that front end. And it's imperative that you stop discounting that, because even if you're an apothecary with 100 SKUs, the moment somebody sees your pharmacy from the outside, the moment they walk in the door, you're projecting an image with what things look like in front of the pharmacy counter. Don't discount the importance of that. It's the image that you're creating right now at the front end of your business. And we're going to be talking about that a little bit more detail here in just a second. So I'm going to start with neuroscience in your pharmacy. Now, neuroscience, we're just going to do a very, very tight definition of it for the purposes of looking at your pharmacy and retail. So neuroscience is really the study of what drives people to do things, okay? And then with respect to your pharmacy, respect to retail, studies show that people are not rational shoppers. Now, we've heard this before, probably some of you heard this before, but people are not rational shoppers. And think about that. How many of you go to Costco with a list, and when you leave Costco, there's a bunch of things that you've purchased that aren't on the list? They are one of the best in the world at doing this. One of the ways they do it is that they provide you samples, right? And suddenly you taste something and you go, I got to have that. And we're not rational shoppers. Okay, we're impulse shoppers. That's why you'll see in retail all the time, there's impulse buys at the register. If you're not using that, you should be using that. So keep in mind, people are not rational shoppers. And it turns out that neuroscience studies show that shoppers are unconsciously attracted by pleasure and a feeling of reward. And in fact, unconscious thought drives up to 80% of consumer purchase behavior. Think about that. Up to 80% of purchase behavior is driven by subconscious thought. Now, that's imperative that you understand when you're thinking about the image you're trying to portray in your pharmacy. This knowledge, this little tiny bit of knowledge, can drive so much more business to your pharmacy if you take advantage of knowing this information. 80%, think about that, of your patient's purchase behavior is driven by unconscious thought. So how does that impact things? What should we do with this knowledge? Well, this one slide only has this one piece. Virtual merchandising in your pharmacy, or visual merchandising. Visual merchandising helps create the value, customer value, by making the shopper journey efficient, unique, and memorable. So keeping this thought in mind that 80% of consumer purchase behavior is driven by subconscious thought. Visualizing things is what's going on. People are visualizing your pharmacy, and is it creating something, one, that's efficient? Because people get impatient. So what you're doing efficient, does it create a unique and memorable experience? Think about your pharmacy right now. Is there anything that you're doing when they see your pharmacy that is unique and memorable? Because that's what not only gets them in the door, but keeps people coming back. So think about this. What's your store's appearance? Now, if I had asked that question first, what's my store's appearance? Most of you would be driven right to the entry into the middle of your pharmacy, inside the building. But honestly, your store's appearance starts with the exterior of the building. Now, for those of you that have a parking lot, it starts in the parking lot and the exterior of the building. Some of you don't have the parking lot, right? You're on a sidewalk and it still starts with the exterior of the building. How many people are driving by your pharmacy every single day and not stopping, and have never stopped? Now, why is that? Is it that the exterior of the building and the parking lot are filthy and it looks run down and and the thought that people notice it and go, I will never step foot in that dump? Or is it that just as bad, because they're not coming in your pharmacy, it looks nice, it looks clean, but it doesn't say anything. It doesn't create any kind of feeling that I want to check that place out. Think about businesses you drive by that have caught your attention, and you go, "Wow, I've got to check that store out. I've got to go in there." Does your store do that? So it starts the exterior of the building, not just the interior. Now, if you can get them to stop, then what does the entryway look like? What's the flooring like? What are the fixtures like? What's the layout? How are things merchandised? What's the lighting like? Is it dim and dreary? Is it bright and inviting? What's the signage like? Here's an interesting story about signage, or study about signage. We've all heard that picture's worth 1,000 words. With signage, it turns out that pictures do a better job than text. But if you're going to have a picture, and it's best to have a picture on the left and text on the right. That actually does better than simply a picture, and a lot better than simply text. But here's an interesting thing. If you put the text on the left and the picture on the right, it's almost as bad as just having text. We read from left to right. If we see a picture, we're more engaged, and we'll tend to read the text that goes with the picture. But if we put the text on the left and the picture on the right, we see the text first, it's just like text, and we don't even look at the picture. It's crazy stuff. That's what neuroscience teaches us, but it's a fascinating thing. And if you're doing signage, it's something important to keep in mind, and you should be doing signage. Cleanliness. Are my floors clean? Is my entryway clean, inviting? Are my fixtures clean? Do I have dust everywhere? Looks like I'm going out of business. Do I have bare shelves? It looks like I'm going out of business. Am I completely cluttered, which looks like I'm totally disorganized? Think about this. You're a pharmacy that says, my front end isn't important to me because, I carry, just a small smattering of some OTC items for convenience, but I'm really making my money in vaccination. I'm doing all these other things. And now the person walks in and your store's filthy. Does that make somebody feel comfortable about getting vaccinated, having a needle put in their arm? Probably not. So that image is important regardless of what you're selling. We're going to come back and talk a lot more about that stuff in here in a moment, but think about that. Now, need of a remodel. You go, I just can't afford to do a remodel. Well, you don't have to do everything at once. And that's one of the important things here. You can, and I'm not asking you to do everything at once, make small incremental changes, measure those changes and see if they're having an impact. We're going to look at some pictures here in a little bit, or here in a moment, of a couple of different pharmacies that I think are just exceptional, and they're doing exceptional business. And the first one is from our guest speaker last month, Mona Gaddis at Durand Central Pharmacy. And in these pictures, one of the things, or when you go into her store, one of the things you'll notice is that she's done away with the aisles. And in her presentation in the interview last month, we talked about that, and it was a transformation. It didn't happen overnight. They didn't just go in one day, tear out all the aisles, and come in and create a boutique pharmacy overnight. It's piecemeals, just small changes at a time, and measuring those changes. So here you can just see some of the display techniques. And one of the things that we find with neuroscience, and you'll see this in the next one as well, is that people, when you display on wood shelves, wood cabinets, wood floors, and you'll see some wood flooring and some really amazing uses of lighting in the next slides, people attach value to that. They believe the product is of higher quality, and as a result, that that they should pay more money for it, and they do. So it's pretty fascinating stuff when you start understanding the neuroscience behind people's purchasing decisions that are completely irrational. One slide here that I want to point out too is Durand Central really focuses on drug-induced nutrient depletion as one of their clinical service areas. And so they have a high-end high-end vitamins and supplements right there at the pickup lane. And so they're talking about it, and it's right there in front of people so they can see it, they can see the prices, they can see the quality of product, and that has helped drive sales as well. Now, this is Valley Integrated Pharmacy. You can see here, they do have, in the middle slide, they do have some aisles left in the pharmacy, more your traditional products here. And then over in this slide, I love this slide because you have this beautiful wood floor. Down here, you have really nice looking carpeting squares. But so you can change the flooring in the store to accent what you're doing in the store. Wood shelving with nice lighting, tables, really beautiful display. Look at the really cool lighting. You've got lighting up in the ceilings, spotlights, amazing use of lighting. Over here, lighting up the prescription department. Over here, another just example of ways to display in a boutique fashion that give people a feeling, an ambiance. You're really creating an ambiance. And I know you go, wait a minute, what are we talking about ambiance in my pharmacy? That's why I think about ambiance when I'm in a restaurant, but not in my pharmacy. But you need to be thinking about ambiance in your pharmacy because it's those subconscious feelings people have that are going to keep them coming back to your pharmacy. And that's my next slide. What's my store's ambiance? So is it warm and welcoming or cold and chaotic? We all know, being in this industry, that it gets chaotic behind the counter in the prescription department, right? We know that. The question is whether your patients and your customers know that, whether they feel that. They can't feel that. You can't let them feel that. You can't let them feel this is a cold and chaotic place. You want to create a warm and welcoming environment from the moment they see the outside of the store, through the door, and certainly when they're in the store interacting. And so so think about this. You're trying to create this image. You're trying to create a warm and welcoming image. You're trying to create a professional image, I'm hoping. What is the appearance of your team? Does your team have some kind of a uniform, maybe a shirt with a logo, the store's logo, and then a name tag? You should be having a name tag. If you don't have a name tag, that's how expensive is that? Change that now. If you don't have a logoed shirt, or at least, even if it's not a logoed shirt, some form of a requirement for appearance, you need to be doing those things. So what's the appearance of your team? In the prescription department, are you trying to be clinical? Are you trying to create a professional image? Then white coats, probably a must. Once again, name tags. So what's the appearance of your team today? Easy fix if you're not doing these things. What are the consumer interactions like? On the sales floor, at the register, on the phone? Well, what is that like? If if they walk up and it's a grumpy person asking to help them because it's so chaotic in the pharmacy, you can't have that. You just simply can't have it. It hurts your image. There's a good chance that person doesn't come back. They tell other people. Those are the things you don't want to have. And how do you ensure that you're portraying the things you want, the image you want? It's through training. So if you're not doing store meetings, you should be doing store meetings. You should be doing store meetings at least once a month. If you aren't doing training on this stuff, you can't assume people know how to do this. I tell a story, I'm not going to go into the details, but one of my top people here at RMS started as an intern and got the job because when I was go through the checkout line at the grocery store where he was bagging groceries, he looked me in the eye and smiled and said, "Have a nice day." That's important, and it doesn't come to everybody. Okay, it's not natural for everybody. How do you teach that? Well, you have to be having store meetings where you are teaching that. You can go to YouTube and find all kinds of training videos that you can share during store meetings on customer service, and you should be doing those things. That's really important. How are you teaching your employees to respond to people saying thank you? Do they say no problem? Hate no problem. First of all, no problem uses the word problem. It's a negative connotation. It wasn't professional. I don't even remember when no problem started. We all do it from time to time. The right answer, though, you're welcome. That's warm and welcoming. No problem, cold and chaotic. Teach your staff to go with you're welcome, and you'll see a difference. Okay, store meetings, we have to do it. You have to create an ambiance. It's all part of your image. These are all important things that back to neuroscience. Back to neuroscience here. We know that up to 80% of people's purchasing decisions are based on subconscious thought. Okay, so create that store image, and ambiance is part of that. Now, marketing and advertising, I'm only going to talk, this is brief. This is not a presentation about marketing and advertising. This is a presentation about, obviously a presentation about creating, this environment that you can thrive, that causes people to feel positive and want to come back. So here's the important piece. It's not the media. It's the message that creates a successful marketing campaign. It's the message. What's your message? And that message, here's the media, print, TV, radio, social, website, whatever. That's your media, but it's not about that. Okay. Some of that media works well in your location. Some of that media doesn't work at all in your location. I'm not telling you which ones because I don't know. You have to figure that part out, but that's not what's important anyway. It's the message that you're portraying in that media, in that campaign. And that message has to tie directly to the image you're trying to portray and the image you are portraying. It's not even what you're trying to portray, because you are portraying an image. It may be not the image you want, and you need to make changes to portray that image, but that is the reality. You are portraying an image. So you need your messaging, the image that you want. All of these things have to sync. It's all about that messaging. That's all I'm going to talk about with marketing and advertising. You need to be doing it, but that's a whole different presentation for another day. Okay, so we're now to this place that I call by the numbers, because I've just given you, in a very, very quickly, giving you a bunch of ideas on things that you need to be focusing on, places you can change, making your incremental changes. And then the question is, how do I know? How do I measure these things? Well, I can tell you this, that, Mona, I can tell you this because Mona told us all of this last time. And if you didn't see that presentation, you should go back and watch that presentation. But Mona Gaddis from Grand Central told us last time that, she made all of her changes were incremental. But one of the things that changed, not only did her front-end business improve, but guess what? The pharmacy business improved too. So you can measure those numbers in your pharmacy management system. You can see that your average script volume goes up, the number of new patients goes up, the number of patients in general goes up. All of those things you can manage and look at in your pharmacy management system. The numbers I'm going to talk about right now come from your point of sale system. And these are numbers that will help you understand if the incremental changes that you're making with your merchandising, your cleanliness, your organization, all of these changes that you're going to make, hopefully, or at least some that you're going to make, will have an impact. And some of you don't even need to make any changes. You just need to keep on doing what you're doing, which includes changing on a regular basis, what you're carrying and so forth. But this helps you understand whether those changes are actually working. Now, before we get into the numbers, I have just a couple of brief comments. First of all, if you're relying on your drug wholesaler to manage your front end for you and give you all the information you need to do a good job with your pharmacy, you're probably not getting the best advice. One of the reasons is because, of course, they're driven to get you to sell their products and services. That's how they make money. When you look at the numbers, so they're going to give you a planogram for your front end, right? They're going to give you a bunch of planograms. They're going to give you your pricing strategy, going to be all those things. Fine. That's a nice starting point. But then your POS has got to tell you whether those things are actually working for you. So you may get a planogram that has a bunch of products that don't sell. And then at that point, you've got to remove those products and be able to, when they say, why are you doing this? Oh, you need that. You need to be able to say, no, it doesn't work in my environment. There is no one size fits all. There is no such thing. Let me ask you this question. Who's your biggest competitor? In your locality, who is your biggest competitor? Now, every once in a while, a pharmacy owner tells me it's their grocery store. I would argue the majority of times it's your grocery store, at least for front end. Okay, and I should caveat that for the front end of your business. And why do I say that? Well, because everybody has to shop for groceries regularly. The average shopper goes to a grocery store at least once a week. People like me, I'm not on any meds. When I go to the grocery store, I pick up my shampoo or my toothpaste, or I'm getting it at Costco. But I'm getting it at the grocery store frequently because I run out and it's convenient. And I don't have any reason to go to the local pharmacy because I'm not getting meds. Make your pharmacy a destination, but also recognize that, if, and it may not be, there may be somebody else that's right next to you that is even more of a competitor. Maybe it is Costco. Maybe it is one of the chains. But likely the grocery store, because of its convenience factor, is one of your biggest competitors. So create an environment where first you need to recognize, who is my biggest competitor, and that's going to impact all kinds of things. It's going to impact what you carry. It's going to impact what you price. If price was the only factor, in people's buying decision, then convenience stores wouldn't exist, would they? Because we all know convenience stores usually on everyday item, everyday price is more expensive than most other retail segments. So if price is the only factor, convenience stores wouldn't exist. So is your pharmacy a convenience store for Tylenol? If it is, charge convenience store prices for Tylenol. Make that extra money. Not all of you are in that situation. So that's why I'm talking about this. Use the numbers from your POS to help drive those kinds of decisions and recognize those types of situations. And then sell what sells. Don't worry about what your drug wholesaler is trying to tell you to sell. If OTCs and HBA items don't sell something else. Sell something that sells. Make that front-end real estate valuable to you from a dollar perspective. So we've talked all about image. That's what I've been talking about for the last 20 or 30 minutes, all about image. Now we need to talk about the numbers. So let's get right into it. So first question, what's your best performing front-end department? Think about that. What's your best performing front-end department? Now, some of you right now are going, well, I don't know. And I'm, that's unfortunate, but it's the truth. Some of you don't know. And then there's a group of you who are saying, yeah, I know what it is. And we'll just pick one, OTC. And to you that think I have a second question. How are you defining performance? Because I didn't do that. I didn't ask you, what is your best performing department by sales, gross profit? Well, I didn't say. So how did you define that? Okay. Now, I know from experience, 24 years of owning this company and knowing the usage rates of different parts of our product, I know that the majority of you are defining it by gross margin. So I've taken this chart and I've sorted it by the highest gross margin. So this, by the way, is real data from one of our pharmacies that has 5 departments. And so we sorted this first chart by gross margin. And this is what the majority of you were thinking when probably, or sales potentially as well. But the information on this chart is what most of you have access to. If you're looking at this data, this is the access you have, and it's limited to this. Now, about 25% of you can go further. So OTC, keep in mind, was number 1. HBA, gifts, DME, and seasonal was last. Now, if you put yourself on inventory control, where you're doing perpetual inventory, and that is not as hard as it sounds, it's absolutely worth doing. I've done discussions on this and after climb events on this, so I won't go into too much detail. But it's worth doing, and here's why. If you do your inventory, then you get to add on this chart one more or 2 more columns, but one important piece of information turns. The next slide is even more important. But by having your inventory counts, you can see a lot more and more valuable information. So now I've resorted by my inventory turns. So seasonal, which was last, is now the best because I'm sorting it by inventory turns, followed by DME, followed by HBA, and then down here in 4th position, moving from number 1 to number 4, is OTC. Now, absolutely granted that OTC is still providing you the most dollars to the bottom line in profit. Not arguing that point. But what I will argue with you on is you could be providing you much better performance if you managed it with the information that you have available. This just tells us how quickly we are turning our inventory every year. So we make seasonal, we are turning it, the cost of our inventory, we're turning it 6.4 times a year. Okay. The average chain is about 3.5 to 4, which is significantly lower than other retail segments, but the average pharmacy chain is right around there. So seasonal, DME, those are good. HVA is good. OTC, way below normal. Gifts, dismal. Overall store performance, not good. Okay. Now, that only gives you so much information. The next slide is where the real real amazing information comes. And that's when you add this final column, gross margin return on investment, or gross profit. Some say GP ROI. Gross profit return on investment, gross margin return on investment. Sometimes you'll see it like this, 4.49. Sometimes this would be displayed as 449%, depending on your system. This is actually one of the more common ways to do it. The chains sit at 2.7 or 207%, or 270% rather. That's their average. And again, that's low compared to other retail segments. If you were doing automotive, it's like 6.5, 6.5. Anyway, what's important for you to know is that this really gives you the most information. What does this mean? It means that for every dollar I invest in inventory, I'm getting $4.49 back. Okay, so that's important because this is, that's if you were when you're investing in the stock market, you're considering your return. Well, here it's giving you your return. So while yes, OTC is still giving me $30,000 to the bottom line every year, or this last year, it's only giving me $1.65 for every dollar I invest, whereas up here, I'm getting this much higher return on investment. So it tells me a couple of things. One, I might want to expand DME. I might want to expand HBA. I might want to expand seasonal. Doesn't mean I want to get rid of OTC. It means I want to get rid of the products that don't sell. Okay, and this is where this is why I'm talking about what your drug wholesaler is trying to get you to do. They're giving you a planogram, and loaded on your planogram, in most cases, is they're looking at national numbers, not your individual location. They're looking at national numbers, so in most cases, you're carrying things that don't sell in your area. And why don't they sell? Well, it could be, there's so many factors that impact that, but it simply could be that it's not competitive where you are, or just people are buying it from Costco, or so many other things. But that's important for you to know. If it doesn't sell, look at it, go, is it not selling because my price is too high? Is it not selling? And then you do a little research. But if it's not selling, stop selling it. Get it out of your store. So what this pharmacy did is they started making changes. They looked at this data and they said, okay, I've got too much dead inventory in my OTC and my gifts department. They in fact had a huge, they're in a location that is has summer tourism. They went in with their seasonal, or their gifts rather, and they had a huge sidewalk sale and dumped, not at below cost, they dumped a lot of this product, and then they changed what they were doing with their gift department, and they changed the way they buy with gifts, and they were able to get this number up to a reasonable 3.5%. Okay, OTC, same thing. They stopped carrying the products that weren't selling. Mona at Gaddis, when she talked last month, she said, there's so little OTC that I carry today that's even major. She said, I only carry, I think she said 2 shampoos, neither of which are major. They're an organic shampoo that she found that people love, and they pay a lot higher price than they would for some of the national brand shampoos, and they sell a lot more of it. So, be creative, look at what sells, and then look at what it is you're trying to accomplish in your pharmacy, because once again, there's no one size fits all. There's a little bit of work involved. Okay. I don't have a new slide for this particular pharmacy, but I can tell you through those incremental changes that they made, and then looking at their continued reporting, the pharmacy total went from the 1.47 up to 3.75. And it's all through making these incremental changes and then looking at the results. So that is really the end of this part of the presentation. Now, this presentation was also part of a CE that I did for America's Pharmacist Magazine back in October of last year, in 2021, October 2021. Here is, if you go to our website, rm-solutions.com/rms-library, it's the very first article. And you don't have to do the CE credit. You can just, you can read the article. But if you want to do the CE credit, you can do that on NCPA's website and go to their CE credit section, and you'll find that article there to do the CE credit. And that's really it for my presentation. I want to thank all of you for joining us for Climb today. I know this is a little bit shorter, but I think it really tied in to what we've been talking about for the last couple of months. I'm going to take a quick break. So those of you that are customers, well, even if you're not a customer, you're welcome to sit through after Climb, which I'm going to start here in just a second. After Climb I'm going to do a look at those reports that you just saw, how they're presented on our system. And then I'm going to also look at an items with no sales report, just as a refresher. Some of you know these things, but just as a refresher on how to run these reports, what I consider the best practice on using these reports. So I will be right back with that. Once again, thank you all for joining us for Climb. Please share with everybody in the industry, share with your friends, share with your colleagues, and please continue to join us for Climb. Thanks again and have a terrific day.